This is a system called Jarvis, developed by Microsoft. It uses a centralized language model agent to take your question or task and to break it down into the right tools that I need to use to find to do those tasks, and then it does those tasks. So it's like a manager in a company.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's a this is high level thinking, high level planning. Like, this is scary and amazing stuff. Like, at the same time, like you're I don't know, maybe because you're in this world, you're a product manager working on AI. But from my perspective, this is scary stuff, man. Like, I don't know. I don't understand how matter of factly you're saying it.
Hey, welcome to the Art and Science of AI. You're listening to Season 1, which we recorded in May 2023 as a continuous 3-hour-long conversation. Season 2 is now live, so if you're enjoying this discussion, please subscribe for new episodes every week. Now, what this means now, how you can use GPT to like build applications and do cool things.
I'm like very interested about. So, like, obviously, I've seen ChatGPT. I'm paying the $20 subscription. Honestly, I feel like $20 is too little for the value that you get out of it. I mean, we're grateful to be thinking like this. That $20, like, we were blessed to be in a situation where $20 seems like nothing. But you know what I mean? I mean, like it's good value for money. Like, you have a person you can talk to who's like a very smart person who has a great general knowledge about everything. But what are like and the other thing I want to like talk about is like just the pace at which everything's going on. It seems like it's insane, the progress that AI has made just over the last 1 year. And a lot of people keep saying that it's exponential, and like it's hard for humans to process exponential. But what does that mean for our future? Like how better? Like, are we heading into like just all the technologies exist already? Where you can think of a world where anything you see on the screen of your phone or your laptop, you can be sure if it's generated by an algorithm or if it's real. Like, I can already see a path to that world.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely indistinguishable. Like, you, let's say, see a video by a person saying something. There's no way for you to tell if this is real or not. Well, I mean, it's not even far-fetched. Like, I think in a year or 2 years, we'll have that time with the hyper-realistic images that you're seeing. That's one area. But like, what are some other possibilities with this technology?
Okay, I have one request. Do you mind if we like take a moment to just look at these last two concepts that I have on exactly how GPT is being used in applications? Just understand that for a minute, and then let's pause and come back to
for sure. Let's do that.
What are the larger implications of it? So right now, we got up to ChatGPT. What this thing can do is have a conversation with you. You ask it a question, it answers it, and that's all it can do. And it's only doing that based on its training data. It doesn't have access to like anything else. Like, so ChatGPT was trained on something like 300 billion tokens from the internet.
It's 300 billion words.
Yeah. I mean, but the tokens, it's not deduplicated. Like, if the word "the" appeared like 100 times, that's 100 tokens.
Okay. Yeah. What has it been trained on? Like, everything the internet. On the internet?
Yeah. I mean,
like, everything, every post that's been written on Reddit, every movie review on IMDb.
So OpenAI does not reveal this, and this is part of the criticism of OpenAI is that they're not very open in revealing. Like,
such an irony, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
In that sentence itself, OpenAI is not very open. Talking
about, like, no one knows if this is how ChatGPT was trained. This is the best guess of like researchers.
Oh, really? It's all close.
Yeah.
Why are they called OpenAI? I'm curious. Do you know, like, what does the open stand for?
I
thought it was like an open source project first.
Yeah,
it's not
100%
right?
not open source.
It's a for-profit company.
It has a complicated structure. It started as a non-profit. It actually got a lot of investment from Elon Musk and a bunch of other people. So it was a non-profit first, and then they transitioned to a capped profit company.
What does that mean?
A capped profit means that like they set a limit, a cap on how much profit the investors can make. It's something like 10x or 100x. I forget. I think it's 100x. I don't remember, but that means if I invest $1 million, at most I can get back 100 million. If there are more profits beyond that, that goes back into the company.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So non-profit just means.
Are there other companies that follow that model? That popular companies that you know of?
No, I don't know of any. This is the first one that I know of. So yeah, they created this new structure called capped profit because they realized that like the funding they were getting through being a non-profit was not sufficient for like the training that they had to do and everything. And then they became capped profit. And then Microsoft then invested heavily in them. And Microsoft now, I think, owns 49% of OpenAI, and the other 51% is from the original entity. So it's a weird, complicated.
So you're saying no one knows what it's been trained on? It could very well be everything that's ever been produced on the internet.
There is actually evidence that OpenAI itself doesn't know what it was trained on, because in some papers they released, like, they used words like, oh, this thing was inadvertently included in the training data. And like people were like, what does inadvertently mean here? So no, I think they mostly know it, but they don't release it. It's also unclear what the legal and ethical boundaries are of what they trained it on. That's extremely unclear. Right now, for example, a lot of companies are trying to lock down access to their data recently. So Reddit was a huge source of training data for OpenAI, and recently Reddit locked that down, and they said now it's against our terms of service for you to use Reddit data to train your machine learning models. And instead now they're offering a paid service where they say, oh, you can use our data to train your machine learning models, but you have to pay us.
But what's done is done. Now that GPT has been, like, you can't remove. Actually, that's another question I have. Can you, once you have trained the algorithm, and let's say there's some legal complications, say that, hey, you need to ignore all of this understanding, will it like update its vector map?
No, I think realistically what would happen is, if that happened, they would just say, sorry, this model is illegal. Now go train a new model that's legal.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So,
but in this Reddit situation, they can't do that with GPT-3, even though it's been trained on.
It's kind of a gray area. Like, I don't know. Like, legally, it is a gray area because it's publicly available. This text that's on Reddit, like anyone on the internet can access Reddit.
Right.
Wikipedia, Stack Overflow is a big one.
Yeah.
So all these were used as sources for training data, and then those people feel like they're not, both like Stack Overflow and Reddit, and also the users behind those websites. Like, it's kind of unfortunate that like their work is now being monetized. Used, being monetized in a way that they're not getting anything out of it.
I imagine this is going to increasingly become a huge problem. Like with Midjourney, for example, I'm sure Midjourney has also done something similar, like trained on. Like, I think the underlying technology that powers this is Stable Diffusion, which is trained on like 1 billion images.
And it's not clear what the copyright status is also of those images, right?
You can, like Midjourney, you can say the photography in the style of some famous, like Lebowitz or something, and it'll do that. That person's not going to get any money.
Yeah.
Like celebrity images can be generated, and like celebrity voices, whatnot. Like,
yeah, I read recently there was an artist called Grimes. I don't even know who this person is. They said that, oh, if you want to generate AI-based music in my voice, go 50%. For it, and let's share 50-50 or so. I don't know what the.
Anyways, I don't want to.
Oh yeah, let's finish this thing and then we'll come back to this. So the thing I was gonna say is, okay,
oh, cool. What is this?
Here's an example of how. Okay, sorry. Before we get to this, let's talk about what is the limitation here right now. What can I do with this? This model was trained on some 300 billion tokens of text. The cutoff was sometime in 2020 or 2021, I think.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes when I ask it a question, it says that I don't know anything after.
Yes, exactly.
Which is unfortunate. A lot of questions I have is like with more recent stuff.
Oh, yeah. So that's exactly what we're going to look at. So like now all this does is it created a language model based on the training data that it had up to 2021. But now what if I want to do stuff with it with more data that I have? Like, how do I do that? And now everyone is, that's currently one of the hottest opportunities right now.
Actually, so ChatGPT does not know how popular it's got in some sense.
No, it doesn't.
That's so funny, no?
It has no idea. It doesn't even know what ChatGPT is.
Yeah, exactly. That's another interesting thing.
Yeah. So, but I think one of the biggest opportunities right now what everyone is trying to figure out is how do I connect ChatGPT to some text that's more interesting to me than what it was trained on.
Right.
And it could be like my own company. I have my internal database at my company and I want to answer questions based on that. Or like maybe you have your own
like health data. It's like
your health
hey,
data.
Look at my Fitbit log.
Yeah.
Everything unstructured data.
Yeah.
Because I have my Fitbit log for the last 5 years. And like suggest some things that I could improve. That maybe Fitbit cannot.
So let's try to think of a simpler example, because Fitbit logs is not typically what I would call text data. That's like very structured data. But think about if I had like a database in my company. Actually, one example I saw recently was a guy that built a ChatGPT based app that would look at the history of all Lex Fridman podcast transcripts and answer any questions based on that.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That guy has like really like academic people on his podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he has like hundreds of episodes. Each episode probably has like tens of thousands of words in its transcript. How would you even build a system like that could interact with that level of text and find the right? Because remember, ChatGPT has a context window limited. It's like 4,000 tokens. So I can only put 4,000 tokens of text into ChatGPT.
Actually, could you not, because I don't know much about this, maybe it's a stupid question, but take the ChatGPT model, retrain it again with additional data, and that additional data would be the Lex Fridman transcripts. Is it not possible for any normal person to retrain these things?
It is possible, but that retraining actually doesn't give it new knowledge. That retraining would mostly just give it new ways of answering questions, a new style. The way to give it knowledge is to connect it to an external database. Retraining would be like a prohibitively expensive process every time. So yeah, suppose it does even give it new knowledge, retraining. It's ridiculous to say that I need to train a 175 billion parameter model over and over again every time I wanted to have some new knowledge. So that's not going to scale. The way to do it is you connect GPT with external knowledge databases. And that's actually one of the recent evolutions that's happened and that I want to talk about. This is a graphic from one of my colleagues, actually. His name is Vikash. He works at my company and he's been writing a lot about like AI and LLMs, and he created this graphic of how you would create a question answering system. So think about this, like you have a question about some private document that you have, okay? Right. So what's happening there first? Like, let's look at this box. You have what's called a vector database. Right. We talked about like words to vectors,
embeddings.
Right? Embeddings.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on here. First, what you do is you create a vector storage of your documents. In this case, assume documents.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about these new databases that specialize in vector storage, like Pinecone. Have you heard of Pinecone?
Yes. So Pinecone is probably the most, it says here, example Pinecone. Yeah. Okay. So Pinecone is probably the most popular vector database right now. There are a couple of others.
Oh, so I see. So these are specialized database instead of like relational, like row-wise storing.
Yeah.
They do embeddings.
Exactly. Oh, okay. And we talked about embeddings, the
so
word
they're like
vectors,
the NVIDIAs
right?
of the databases.
Well, NVIDIA is processing, not storage.
Are any of them public? I want to buy the stock, maybe.
Pinecone recently announced Andreessen Horowitz invested $1 billion or something in them.
Yeah, good for them.
It was huge.
Anyways, go on. So this box.
So first what you do is you take your entire knowledge base, all your documents. In this case, it could be your personal notes or your company's database, and you convert them to embeddings. OpenAI has an embeddings API, and you upload them all to a vector database. Okay, so that's the external knowledge base that you have now.
Right.
And when you
so sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I just want to clarify. So the advantage of doing this is you've translated into a language that these models can understand, which are embeddings. So the language that these new models understand are embeddings.
Yes.
Okay.
And also embeddings can have mathematical operations on them to understand similarity.
Yeah.
And also the storage is more optimized.
Okay. It's because it's designed to store embeddings.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So when you ask a question like blah, 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 whatever, like suppose this is the Lex Fridman example, right? Yeah. Suppose these documents are all Lex Fridman podcast transcripts. Suppose your question is like, hey, what did Lex say to David Deutsch or something about physics? Right. So then the question gets converted to an embedding.
Right.
And then you go and query the vector database and you find you do a vector similarity search for what are all the documents that are similar to this query. So you can do vector similarity search because like vectors are mathematical objects, and you can look at what is the distance between any two vectors. So you can say, given this vector, give me the 10 vectors that are closest to it, that are most similar to it. So given this question, I can ask for the 10 vectors that are most similar to this question.
Basically, it sounds like with this vector, this whole vector logic, you've like with Boolean, the advantage was that you've started to doing arithmetic.
Yeah.
On like language. Like that's what it sounds like with vector. Yes. You're able to do. You're able to like manipulate language without actually knowing what is in, like understanding the meaning.
It's the same thing.
But you're able to like abstractly manipulate it and then come up with like
And knowledge. Originally we were talking about words as vectors. Yeah. Now we have documents as vectors.
Oh, okay.
So now it will retrieve the 5 documents that are most similar to your question. So you ask it a question, you say, tell me what Lex said to David Deutsch about like physics, some random thing. It'll look for what are the 5 documents that are most similar to it. That's what it creates as the context. And then it passes that context to the LLM, like ChatGPT. And now the question that ChatGPT just gets is like, given these 5 documents and this question, answer the question. That's something you could directly paste into ChatGPT right now.
Right.
But the thing is, if you connect it to an external knowledge base, you cannot give it the entire transcripts would be like, like thousands of pages, and that can't go into ChatGPT.
Right.
So what's happening is those thousands of pages are being stored as a vector database, and you can efficiently retrieve whatever is most relevant to your question.
Why wouldn't ChatGPT just build something that makes this whole process easy? Like
they do. It's called ChatGPT plugins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are those? Like
it's exactly this. Basically, anyone. So I can build a plugin to ChatGPT.
I don't have to like do all this vector business. Meaning, like
no, you have to as the plugin developer if you want some. So the user doesn't have to.
Yeah. Let's say I'm the lay user.
Yeah.
The lay person, and I want to connect ChatGPT to like my own private database.
Yeah, where is your private data?
Forget database, because database itself is something technical.
Yeah.
Like I have I don't know, like my grandfather has a bunch of like has a diary that he's been writing in for the last 50 years, let's say.
Yeah.
And it's in digital format.
Yeah.
It's in a Word doc.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be released anywhere.
Yeah.
But I want like ChatGPT's smarts to be able to tell me stuff from that diary.
Yeah,
like,
so
how can I do this as a layperson who doesn't understand vector business? Like I don't want to use the word vector. How can I achieve that?
Yeah, you can't, but the app developer, so if the diaries are stored as Microsoft Word documents, Microsoft can release an ChatGPT based application that does this for you, and it says, hey, all you got to do is like click this button to connect your Microsoft Office account to ChatGPT, and you can ask any questions of it. So the first step is the app developers are going to do this. So Microsoft, Google, Slack, Discord, WhatsApp, all these applications that have data in them, that have documents, that have knowledge bases, they all have to think about what is their business strategy, what do they want to build, and they're probably going to build these applications, and you as an end user can then connect depending on where your data is. If your data is in Google Docs, then you can probably connect to Google and whatever application Google built. We talked about Notion. Notion has its own AI. So yeah, it depends on where your data is. And this is still territory that's extremely unclear what the business strategy will be for these companies, how they will develop. But if you're an independent app developer, you can do this. So this applies not for users. This is for app developers.
Right.
If you want to develop an app that users can use. So you make this podcast, right? Docents. Suppose you want your users to be able to interact with this Docents podcast through a natural language interface. You could make this app. You could upload your whole transcripts to a vector database and make an application such that users can say, hey, tell me what did Nikhil say on Docents podcast about vector databases, and they could get the answer. So yeah, this stuff is what app developers can do using GPT.
Right.
Okay.
And this thing is an architecture for ChatGPT plugin.
Yes, for ChatGPT plugin, or more generally for a language model to interact with an external database.
Right. So again, if I step back and then like go with our high level story.
Yeah.
Like in the evolution of AI, from classical we went to from classical programming we went to classical machine learning, and then from there we went to neural nets. And at every point we were hitting some walls, and then we were finding new solutions. And it led us to generative AI, which is what has fascinated us, which is the reason why we're here. And ChatGPT is the start, but this is another innovation that's come on top of it, which is adding plugins and giving that language model an external source of knowledge.
Yes, exactly. Because ChatGPT doesn't have any knowledge other than what it was trained with.
Right. What are some other such innovations that are happening on?
Okay, so I want to talk about one last thing, which is like, this is just giving it external knowledge.
Yeah.
There's also giving it whole other external capabilities and tools. Like, for example, ChatGPT is a language model, but it's not good at math. It's not good at like programming. If you ask it, what is 5,033 times 3,044? Probably won't give you a good answer to that. It's not
because it's the next word prediction type thing.
Yeah, exactly. But ChatGPT doesn't need to answer that question. All ChatGPT needs to know is that, hey, this looks like a math problem, and to answer this question, I'm going to use a calculator. That's what it needs to do. And then all it needs to do is figure out what are the two numbers that I need to plug into the calculator, plug them into the calculator, and get the result for you. So that's
Actually, I have a question there. You said that ChatGPT, the only thing is doing, even though at our level, it looks like it's a fascinating thinking person, like in reality, the only thing it's doing is just predicting the next word.
Yeah.
Right? That's all it is doing.
Yeah.
Like in reality.
Yeah.
Then how is it going to do all this that you describe? Even that, it looks like it's a math problem. Like that is seems like it's more abstract thinking. It's not just predicting the next
That's where language model meets prompt engineering. That's where you have to develop the right prompt to get the right response. So the right prompt here could be like, hey, what tool do you need to answer this question? Imagine if you just put that prompt. Then
no, but from how you said it, you made it sound like ChatGPT is going to figure all that out for you. So you just say, what is 18,000 times 1,544? And ChatGPT will figure out, okay, this sounds like it's a math question.
Yeah.
It sounds like in this math question, to solve this math question, I have to invoke a calculator.
Yeah.
So this sounds like thinking.
Oh, yeah, but
it's not predicting next word.
Sure, but I'm saying this is a program that you have built where ChatGPT is the central part of the program. And
I see what you mean. You're saying you're still thinking from an application developer's point of view.
Exactly. Yeah. ChatGPT is not doing this on its own.
ChatGPT will never be able to do all thinking on its own.
I'm not sure why that's relevant.
Like never, but you know what I mean.
But I am like, OpenAI could easily release a new thing called Agent GPT that does this. So I'm not sure why it's relevant whether ChatGPT can do this or not.
Right. Like, I see what you mean. Right.
Most likely that's what's going to happen. OpenAI is probably going to release something called Agent GPT or some version of that is an actual agent that can do things, that calls ChatGPT and asks it specific questions. So I would ask ChatGPT given a task.
That's a good conversation to have, because how would Agent GPT work? Like, do you have any insights?
That's the last example that I have here. It's called.
It sounds like the next evolution, right? Like
yes.
So our story has sort of like, our discussion has sort of been leading into like this breakthroughs and getting more powers.
Yeah.
Right. Like it sounds like with plugins it gets more power, but like agency, like when you say agency, you mean a sense of agency. That's like. Right now, it's from my point of view, from a layperson's point of view, like the only thing differentiating a human from a machine is like a sense of agency. Like there's like we're not just in a meat body, right? Like we have a sense of agency. There's like a soul that we have in our meat body, like, and then we do things in the world. Like whereas a machine, even though let's say someone creates like in 10 years from now, like using whatever new breakthroughs in biology or whatnot, like a biological machine with like ChatGPT, like some Westworld kind of thing, like it won't have a soul like we do and have a sense of agency, but the way you're...
I don't know if those two things are related, like having a soul and agency. I could give a program simple agency. I could just say like, if I give a program access to my email account and say, hey, you can write emails, that's agency, but that's not a soul. Like it's just simple forms of agency. Like, suppose I create a ChatGPT that connects to my Gmail. I say, hey, every time you get an email from Piyush, like just take that text, maybe look up some knowledge base I have and write a response and reply to Piyush. That would be an agent.
Maybe I'm using the word agency wrongly, but just the way you were describing the thought process earlier, like, oh, looks like this is a math problem.
Yeah.
Maybe I should take like 2 numbers from it and you should use a calculator. Like
But I can extend that to the same example. I can say, look, if I get an email from Piyush and he has a question, figure out how to answer that question and answer that question, use the tools you need.
Yeah, but you're saying all this very matter of factly. Like, this is scary and amazing stuff. Like, at the same time, like, you're, I don't know, maybe because you're in this world, you're a product manager working on AI. But from my perspective, this is scary stuff, man. Like, I don't know. I don't understand how matter of factly you're saying it. It's like, this is thinking. Like, you're thinking.
I think so. The level of scariness depends on like the level of empowerment you give it, right? So if I'm saying I give it access to my emails and I give it access to write emails for me,
yeah, that's where the agency comes in. Like, how do you know you'll stick to like that's the agency? I mean, like the way you describe it, it sounds like it's like because it sounds like you're generalizing that agency when you say that, okay, I'm going to give it a math problem and it's going to start thinking. It sounds like it's a math problem.
Yeah.
And I need to do this.
Yeah.
Then you're again going into like the rule-based world. The rule is you can have agency as long as it's a math problem. But someone's going to come and say, okay, well, let's remove rules out of it.
Well, but I'm saying you define what are the things you connect it to, right? Like,
what are the tools it has?
Yeah, exactly. What are the tools it's connected to? So that's how this system. Actually, let me go to the next slide, which is the last one, which is exactly about this. This is a system called Jarvis, developed by Microsoft in collaboration with...
props to the branding team, whoever came up with him.
Collaboration with Hugging Face, which is the biggest like open source library of like machine learning models. It's called Hugging GPT. What it does is it uses a centralized language model agent to take your question or task and to break it down into like, what are the right tools that I need to use to do those tasks, and then it does those tasks. So here, let's take a look at this.
Hugging GPT?
Hugging GPT, because it's called Hugging Face is the company. It's an open source
that's a nice
project that just has a repository of like models, and this is Hugging GPT. So task is, can you describe what this picture depicts and count how many objects are in the picture? Okay, that's the task that comes in. Then first thing is the language model does this like task planning. It figures out like, what do I need to do to achieve this task? And then the second thing is it translates that into model selection. So Hugging Face is a library of like machine learning models. They have a model for pose detection. They have a model for like image recognition. They have a bunch of different like ML models, and they might even have a model or a calculator tool. Instead of models, you can think of it as tool selection. It might have a calculator tool in there. So it goes and selects like, what is the right tool I need for which.
Where does it select the tool from? From the Hugging Face?
In this case, we've just connected it to this set of tools. Like Hugging Face has a list of set of tools, but abstractly, you could connect it to whatever tools you want. But you would always control what tools you give it access to.
Right.
And if you give it access to Gmail, you could control, do I want to give it access to read my Gmails or also write Gmails?
Right.
And if you give it write access, that gives it a lot more power. So what it's doing is it's finding like a set of different tools. It's breaking down the task into, it says in this case, what this picture depicts and count how many objects. So first it's breaking down, it's like, I can describe it as a herd of giraffes and zebras grazing in fields. So for that, it needed a model that translates text to like captions. It figured that out, that's the first thing I need.
Actually, can you, like, based on all that we have discussed so far, can you, like, just based on our discussion, help me understand how that happened? How did it describe text from that image using all the models and the evolution of AI that we have discussed so far?
So first, it took this text that says, what does this picture depict, what this picture depicts, and it figured out what is the out of the tools.
So first, it had to break down the picture into raw pixels, RGB pixels, right?
Let's say it processed the text first before it processed the image.
Yeah.
It processed the text and it said it needs a model that can do image description. That's the first thing that it figured out. Then it went to Hugging GPT and look, it figured out that, look, I need this model called image captioning. That's the model.
Right.
Then what this model does is it takes this image and it breaks down those RGB values and it gives a caption.
Right.
And the caption returned is a herd of giraffes and zebras grazing in fields. But the thing is, these are all specialized models. They're not general models.
Right.
This model, all it does is it takes an image and gives you a caption.
Right.
But here is like the central brain, or like the central, I don't know, brain of the system that's doing this coordination, that's figuring out what are the tasks that need to be done, and it's selecting so it's like a manager in a company. Imagine you have a company, and like there's
that's exactly what I was thinking. It's a this is high level thinking, high level planning, high level thinking.
Exactly. It doesn't know how to do
execution.
like image captioning. It doesn't know how to do like object
But that's what managers are supposed to do. Like they'll delegate. Like like it's in some sense like, we're as employees, we're all like APIs. We're all at different level. Like like the more higher level you are, like the more complex tasks you can do. Like a CEO at his level will call an API, like his VP is like, hey, like go make this stuff in India for me. Like create iPhones in India. That's a very complex task.
So that's actually what this is evolving to now. This is becoming a high level manager, and it's able to break down like the next level tasks that needs to be done. And all you need to do is connect it to the right tools or models that can do that next level breakdown of tasks that it needs to do. And if you connect it to this Hugging Face library that has all of these open source models.
Like you're saying it so matter-of-factly. Like this, like I think you're too close in this world, and you've been talking to a lot of people who are too close in this world. I'm 100% sure when you speak to most lay people, this is insane. Like, this is going to take away everyone's job. Well, I shouldn't say hyperbolic like everyone, but you know what I mean? Like, this is going to, a lot of jobs
it's very question. I don't know if everyone's jobs, but I would say already right now for engineering, I think is software development is pretty heavily hit, where I give it a specification, like write a program for me that does XYZ. It can act as like a software developing like tech lead or architect or manager, and then call the models that will develop like what are the sub programs that have to be written, write all those scripts. And it could increase engineering efficiency. I don't know what ratio, 1:2 at least, but could it go to 1:3, 1:5, 1:10?
Yeah, it's like that exponential curve thing, no? Like we think like we humans, like from an evolutionary point of view, we don't think exponentially, but like if you take the progress which is exponential in this case, it's like it's going to increase the order of magnitude in no.
But I think this is the key like innovation now with ChatGPT. What people have found is that it's not the purpose of this type of like language model is not just to do question answering, but to serve as like an orchestrator of like different tools. And given a task, it can do things like break down the task into its subcomponents. And if given a set of tools, it can identify what are the right tools that can do this task for me. And we already have like a huge set of specialized models. Many are open source. Companies may have many closed source models. And this, you can set up an orchestration framework where I can get a task, break it down, go find the right tools to do the task, execute those, rinse and repeat. That's what these tools like Auto GPT and Baby AGI that they're doing right now. That's leading to what people are calling artificial general intelligence, which is this engine that is just like able to like generally do any task that's not like a specific or specialized task.
It's crazy. Like even in our discussion, we started with a simple house prediction or determining if it's an apple or an orange, and it's come to already like in 2023 where it can figure out and do a lot of tasks. So actually, the other thing I want to talk about, I remember like when we were talking on phone, you mentioned that you believe that this is the iPhone moment. And that really struck with me. Like, can you help me understand what do you mean when you say the iPhone moment, and why do you believe that this is the iPhone moment?